Kristin Gutekunst, who's with the UN Sustainable Development Goal Action Campaign, and who's been leading some innovative work, I think, that in its own way is appealing to our minds using new technologies, including virtual reality, and also inviting people from all parts of the world, including areas that are subject to these conflicts, to participate in generating solutions for the goals that the United Nations have adopted.
First of all, how many of you have heard of the Sustainable Development Goals? Okay, that's great. Okay, we're doing a good job, that means. So for those of you who haven't, 17 goals that governments have all ratified to be in place from 2016 until 2030. And basically it's our plan to, for people, planet, to set us on a better, more sustainable path so that basically the way we're going now is not gonna work, so we gotta do it differently. One, two, a lot of different kind of ways from the last agenda, which was the Millennium Development Goals. It's not focused north-south, it's really inclusive for everybody. We're all being judged equally. There's thousands or millions of people who participated and gave their opinions on how the goals should be formed. Everybody has a shared responsibility to be a global citizen, to participate, because we can't do it by ourselves. So our campaign used to be called the Millennium Campaign. We were formed in 2002 to help build and maintain political will for people to get involved in campaigning and standing up and telling their governments that they actually cared about the Millennium Development Goals. We were the campaign that worked with people all over the world through the My World Survey and the World We Want, as well as many UN agencies, the many civil society groups, governments, schools, everybody, and we got them to tell us what their opinion was, what's the most important thing to them. And then we fed that all into the political process so that they could influence what was happening. And actually, because of that survey, we've been credited with getting Goal 16 on the agenda really strongly. The action campaign, a little acronym, accountability and monitoring, communications and storytelling, teamwork and innovation. So essentially, we kind of work in all different types of projects, and we offer a plethora of ways for people to get involved with telling their opinions and telling their stories. And then we combine them in a lot of different ways so that people have different ways of learning about it. So data visualizations, and also ways for people to share their opinions, scraping big data, photo narrative stories, and that led us into virtual reality, which is what I'll go into a little bit more because it's kind of interesting stuff. We have competitions. We just finished a hackathon, which people will talk about afterwards. And essentially, we try to open the door to connect people to their decision makers, and then give decision makers an easy way to contextualize how people feel through these individual stories. And a lot of what I think you were touching on is getting away from this single story. It's not just one Muslim that gives the whole context for the whole. Actually, this is what it's like to be a Muslim in many different instances. Here is a snapshot of a mini campaign we did in West Point, Liberia. Here is the results from the My World Survey. And so it was 16 development goals that were prior to the Sustainable Development Goals. And we asked people what were their top 6. So they said good education, better job opportunities, access to clean water, sanitation, better healthcare, yada, yada. We allowed people to become a partner and to go out into the communities by themselves. So this is actually volunteers that went there and they asked people, their neighbors, their friends, and they asked them to get involved. So this is a really small sample, but just to give you an idea. Then we worked with a school, and they also went to the community, and they said, well, what's your top one and why? And so this is a story about a young man who says it's education, and it's because I'm a student, I want to do this, but I can't afford it, and I don't know what's going to happen to me. So now you're seeing how some of the goals are connecting and coming together. Then we did a story about a young woman who survived Ebola and who is now working with orphans, and some of the challenges that she has and the grief that she feels from having survived her partner, and how she still feels so much stigma. So you can see within that young people are not going to school. You can see that water and sanitation is bad. You can see all these things. You can actually stand in their shoes and feel what it feels like to be them. Then we brought it to the high-level meeting on Ebola recovery, and we showed it to some of the politicians that were there and the diplomats and other advocates, and we said this is a new tool that you can actually show people what the experience is like, and we used it for fundraising and for advocacy to kind of tell people's stories and get people involved. So that's just a snapshot. So the UN VR project basically is building upon a lot of what we're doing. And in the future, we're going to be using it for technology, for education, for advocacy, for fundraising. There's really interesting examples of using it with PTSD, we're using it for training for people in the field, for example. And this is a really new kind of, it's unexplored in a lot of ways, and every time you go to a different conference or you open the news, there's something new. And the good thing about this is, like the other projects, all the UN agencies are getting involved. So these are some of the films that's out there. If you go to unvr.org, you can check that out.
We're fortunate to have some of the individuals who've participated in one of the competitions.
We feel there's a great big us and them between the United Nations and civil society. And what we've done is develop a hackathon series and crowdfunding site to fill that gap, to create more of a we around tackling these development goals. Connect to Effect is a new initiative to promote open innovation between the United Nations and the public on tackling the Sustainable Development Goals. These goals are the 17 top challenges the world must address by 2030, as agreed by the UN's 193 member states. Success is measured by the overall Connect to Effect project, but also by the impact of the individual initiatives it supports and through the personal development of each person involved.
I think this variety and diversity of different approaches you had was fantastic, and overall I think the quality of the ideas they had and they came up with was astonishing as well.
You can join in by championing projects on the crowdfunding site, by joining in with future hackathons, or simply supporting us on the usual social media channels. Okay, this is an annual hackathon process. For those who aren't aware, a hackathon is a 48-hour prototyping process where people stop talking about having ideas and get on and build those prototypes. If you are interested in Connect to Effect, it's very straightforward, connecttoeffect.com. Just going to ask each of the team to do their elevator pitch. This is limiting them to under a minute to explain what it is that they've created through this process. Niskala will go first.
Thank you so much, Max. Hello, everyone. Hello. We are from Niskala. We are from Bali. So Niskala is a waste management service for Balinese ceremonies. Our mission is to provide zero-waste ceremonies for Balinese people in their daily life. Because, Bali is really well known as a culture island. There are so many ceremonies in Bali held each year.
And for Balinese people, ceremony is very central in their daily life. There are more than 3,000 ceremonies each year in an island lived by 4 million people. And they're doing it not because of tourism, money, but because they believe in their philosophy of the ceremony.
The problem is these ceremonies result in a huge amount of waste. Although the traditions and ways have not changed, the materials used have. So these wastes actually end up in a lot of landfills, rivers, and environmentally sensitive areas. We're actually the only waste management service that focuses on traditional ceremonies. We would love to share our working demo with you.
We feel Niskala's approach is unique in that we are leveraging culture and tradition to change behaviors. 8 out of 10 people around the world consider themselves to be religious, and we see a real opportunity to move into markets where there are similar cultures and traditions. So we are here today asking for advisors to help us develop our communication strategies and our educational programs. We're also here looking for mentors as well as help identifying potential funding sources. So we'd love to talk to you more if anyone is interested.
There are 285 million visually impaired children all over the globe. Under the age of 15, we have 1.8 million those who are totally blind. So in order to provide them educations, we have special school and special language, that is a Braille language. So In developing countries, we are lacking with the resources, we are lacking with the education sector. So they remain uneducated throughout their whole life. So they don't have schools, access to the schools. So in order to provide them educations, they are now dependent upon traditional method of education, that is a braille slate and huge dependency on the paper. To overcome these traditional method of educations, currently we are talking about e-learning based educations, cloud computing, augmented reality resources and all, cloud. So in order to connect them with the educations, in order to provide them with the technology, we come up with a solution of e-braille slate, where we have zero dependency on the paper and 100% reusability is to be provided.
And we represent equality. So we believe that consumers really today want to make ethical choices, but what they express and what they actually do can be quite different. That's why the main reason for that, we think, is that there's no basic standardized system out there for people to utilize. So that's what we built at Equality.
So what our product does is it'll allow you to scan and search products and then come up with a rating that's based on 3 main criteria: their impact on people, planet, and politics. And in this way, we're really helping consumers become more informed and make more ethical purchasing decisions. So in order to maximize the impact of this, what we want to do is build our software into existing e-commerce platforms. Imagine the benefit that could be realized if millions of Amazon consumers were sorting products not just by price, but by equality rating. We're here today actively seeking endorsements, funding and advice. So please do come and talk to us if you share our vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're very grateful to have your time today and that chance to share these really exciting stories. I'd like to ask that we just recognize the massive work that's gone into this. Nicole from Adpreneurs, if you'd like to come up. Please. So Nicole from Adpreneurs, the innovation agency, and those of us at the Influx Trust have put in a lot of time and effort. So it's a chance to offer some recognition, a final gesture, and to the team who've come literally from all around the world to share the story of the success of Connect to Effect. We'd love it if you want to be a part of this story. You can support the project as a whole through crowdfunding. You can also choose your favorite projects from your favorite goals. We'd love to work together with all of you on this and be back with hundreds of people with stories like this to tell next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.